Russia is moving away from proxy warfare in Africa. The Wagner Group is being retired, replaced by the African Corps, a state-backed force that deals openly with revolutionary governments across the continent and not in secret corridors. For years, Russia's presence in Africa wore no uniform, waved no flag, and answered to no government. It moved silently through mercenaries, mining deals, and shadow wars. But now, all that has changed. The Kremlin is no longer hiding behind the deniability of the Wagner Group. In a bold and unprecedented shift, the Russian Federation has stepped into Africa openly, officially, and unapologetically. Its new tool of influence, the African Corps, a paramilitary force directly backed by Russia's Ministry of Defense. This isn't just a change in name. It's a declaration. Russia is done whispering in the corridors of power. It's now speaking in the language of tanks, uniforms, and military doctrine. For Mali, this means its new defense partner is not a rogue mercenary outfit with shadowy motives, but a state-sponsored army operating with the full blessing of the Kremlin. According to multiple sources, Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the deployment of the African Corps to Mali in 2025. Its mission is clear: defend the revolutionary government, train the national army, and secure long-term influence in a region where France and the United States are being forced out. This is no accident. It's a calculated pivot. After years of denial, obfuscation, and plausible deniability, Russia now sees more value in planting its flag than hiding its hand. And as Western powers retreat from the Sahel, Moscow sees a vacuum, one it's eager to fill. But this raises a deeper question. If Wagner was the hidden fist of the Russia's ambitions in Africa, what does it mean when Russia decides to strike with an open hand? Stay with me, because next, we'll review why Wagner, once feared across Africa, had to be erased from the battlefield and from the record books. The Wagner Group wasn't just a private army. It was a business empire with rifles. On paper, it looked like a mercenary group, but in practice, it operated like a state-backed cartel, guarding presidents, running gold mines, and trading battlefield victories for political leverage. In countries like Mali, the Central African Republic, and Sudan, Wagner offered its service to revolutionary governments under siege. It protected them from insurgents, coup attempts, and Western meddling. But nothing came for free. Wagner's muzzle always comes with strings: gold concessions, security contracts, and political loyalty. Reports confirm that the Wagner-linked firms controlled lucrative mining sites across the Sahel. Their fighters had trained elite units, guarded key installations, and crushed rebellions that threatened their interests. In return, they secured access to resources extracted not in the name of any state, but for the benefit of Russian-backed corporations. And through it all, the Kremlin remained silent. That was Wagner's greatest value: deniability. If it succeeded, Russia expanded its influence. If it failed, the Kremlin claimed no responsibility. It was a perfect weapon in a shadow war. But by 2023, Wagner had become too powerful, too visible, and too unpredictable. And its founder, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was no longer just a servant of the state. He had become a threat to it. Then, his plane exploded. And with it, Wagner's African empire began to collapse. Across African capitals, the silence that followed was deafening. Who would not guard the revolution? Who would keep the insurgents at bay? Who would fight the battles the West walked away from? The answer wouldn't come from a mercenary bot. It would come from the Russian state itself. Coming up, the mysterious death of Prigozhin and the moment that forced Moscow to stop pretending and take full control of the African front. On August 23, 2023, a private jet exploded mid-air over Russia's Stava region. On board was Yevgeny Prigozhin, the warlord behind the Wagner Group, the man who built a global empire out of mercenaries and minerals vanished into smoke, metal, and fire. But what died that day wasn't just Prigozhin. It was the very model of war that Wagner represented. Months before his death, Prigozhin did something unthinkable. He marched his fighters towards Moscow in open defiance of Russia's military command. He exposed deep traps in the system, showing the world that Wagner was no longer just an arm of the Kremlin, but a sword it could no longer fully control. That rebellion may have failed, but it forced the Russian state to rethink everything, especially its presence in Africa. According to sources close to diplomatic briefings, Russia wasted no time after Prigoin's death. It moved swiftly to dismantle Wagner's structure, shut down operations, and offer remaining fighters a choice: leave or join a new formation under the direct state command. The African Corps. In Mali, where Wagner had once acted as the silent defender of the revolutionary government, the transformation began almost overnight. Uniforms changed, command structures shifted, old Wagner bases were absorbed into a new official framework. And for the revolutionary leaders who had trusted Wagner with their own survival, this was a moment of reckoning. The mercenary force they had counted on was gone, but something more powerful and more permanent was now taking its place. Because the Kremlin had learned a dangerous lesson. Mercenaries may win battles, but they can lose you empires. Coming up, what exactly is the African Corps, and why its arrival marks a historic shift in the way Russia projects power across the African continent? What replaced the Wagner Group in Mali wasn't just another contractor. It was something far more serious. It wore national insignia, it saluted the Russian flag, and it came not from the shadows, but from the Kremlin itself. The African Corps is no longer a whisper campaign. It is Russia's open admission that Africa is a battlefield of influence, and Moscow is done playing unofficial games. This isn't a mercenary group. It's a paramilitary wing of the Russian Federation, fully funded and operated by the Ministry of Defense. Strategic documents confirm it was created to project Russian power across the continent with official boots on ground, not ghost soldiers with blurry affiliations. In Mali, this shift is already complete. The African Corps has taken over where Wagner left off, training national forces, protecting institutions, and collaborating directly with the revolutionary government. And this isn't just about security, it's about visibility. Unlike the Wagner Group, the African Corps operate with national authorization and diplomatic presence. No more deniability, no more silent deals, just state-to-state coordination. According to multiple security sources, the Corps isn't limited to Mali. Its footprint is expected to expand into Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, and potentially Chad. Russia isn't just offering help, it's offering permanence. But this transformation raises deeper questions, because for all the flags and formalities, the end goal is still influence. This isn't charity, it's strategy. And for a revolutionary government eager to push out Western troops, Russia's presence offers legitimacy, deterrence, and power projection. But beneath that, one concern remains. Are we replacing a discredited Western presence with something just as commanding, only wearing a different flag? Next, we dig deep into Russia's legacy on the continent and whether it's truly different from those it seeks to replace. Here is a fact that forces us to think even deeper. Russian troops are now training African armies. Russian aircrafts are landing in Sahel airstrips. Russian officers are advising revolutionary governments. But there are no Russian colonial ruins on this continent, not even one. Russia never carved Africa into protectorates. It never forced treaties, built slave ports, or looted museums. That legacy belongs to Europe, to France, to Britain, to Belgium, and Portugal. Instead, Russia, through the Soviet Union, aligned itself with Africa's fight for freedom. It supported the rise of revolutionary icons, Patrice Lumumba, Amilcar Cabral, Samora Machel, and yes, even the ideological alignment of Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah was quietly encouraged from Moscow. Historical records and declassified correspondence confirm that the Soviet Union trained thousands of African students, supplied liberation armies with arms and logistics, and hosted anti-colonial conferences long before independence flags were flying. To many African leaders at the time, Moscow wasn't a colonizer, it was a counterweight, a power willing to support their revolution when the West was funding dictators and assassins. That history now returns with a new form. Today, the Russian Federation inherits that revolutionary legacy, but it comes back not with pamphlets and professors, but with armed brigades and battlefield advisors. Critics say this is just another power using Africa as a chessboard. And yes, Russia wants something in return. Votes at the UN, support on Ukraine, strategic mineral partnerships. It doesn't come for colonial-style extraction. While Russia has vast resources of its own, it still seeks commercial partnerships in arms and minerals that locks in loyalty. But its primary goal here is power, measured in alliances, influence, and leverage against its rivals. For a revolutionary government, that might feel like a breathing space, a partner that doesn't judge or dictate, but history wants us. Every friend of the revolution can one day overstay their welcome. Coming up next, what does Russia gain from this, and what Africa risk in this new era of military partnership? Now, let me get this straight. Russia is not in Africa for our timber, our diamonds, or our oil. It already has all that and more. What it doesn't have right now is control over the global narrative, and that's what this move is about. What Russia is building on African soil is not a colony, it's a sphere of influence. It is offering revolutionary governments something they've long been denied: strategic protection without political sermons, no IMF conditions, no lectures on term limits, no democracy first, sovereignty later diplomacy. By replacing Wagner with the African Corps, Russia isn't just filling a military vacuum. It is positioning itself as the alternative to Western hegemony. France retreats from Mali. The US pulls back from Niger. And who stands by to offer a tempting deal? Protection without the West's lecture on democracy. Russia. But make no mistake, the strings are still there. They are all just tied to Moscow, not Washington or Paris. And it's not a deal offered for free. According to multiple assessments from international policy analysts, Russia's primary objective in Africa isn't resource extraction, it's strategic alignment. It wants African votes at the United Nations. It wants quiet diplomacy on Crimea and Ukraine. It wants access to trade corridors, airspace rights, port facilities, and long-term contracts with leaders it can trust. And trust for Russia means loyalty. It means standing by them, not just on the battlefield, but on global geopolitics. Alliance is built on defense pact, not on colonial papers. For a revolutionary government, the benefits are obvious. A powerful military partner that doesn't interfere in domestic affairs. A backer with global weight, willing to challenge the West head-on. But here's the dilemma. Power given can also be withdrawn. Coming up next, the warning signs from Syria and why Africa must be cautious about relying too heavily on a foreign shield, no matter how friendly it appears. Ask Bashar al-Assad what happens when Russia's attention is split. Once, Russia was Syria's lifeline, launching airstrikes, arming forces, and keeping Assad's government alive. But then Ukraine happened, and just like that, the intensity of Russian support began to fade. Air covers slowed, reinforcements thinned, resources once flowing into Syria were redirected back to Europe, and in the shadows of that shift, old threats crept back in. This is the lesson Africa must not ignore. According to multiple strategic briefings, Russia's global military posture is under pressure. The war in Ukraine has stretched its defense infrastructure, forcing it to rotate troops, reprioritize deployment, and weigh every foreign engagement against domestic costs. Even the African Corps, with its promise of partnership and professionalism, is not immune to this reality. If conflict escalates in Europe, or if Russia becomes embroiled in a wider confrontation with NATO, Africa could find itself watching its defense turn inward. For a revolutionary government depending on Russian support to stabilize their territories, that's a dangerous gamble. And then there is the long-term dependency trap. If Africa leans too hard on any foreign power, be it France, the US, China, or Russia, it risks outsourcing the very sovereignty it's fighting to protect. Yes, Russia brings leverage, it brings deterrence, it brings courage to say no to the West, but it does not bring permanence. Real sovereignty cannot be subcontracted. Africa must learn from Syria, from Libya, from everywhere foreign boots arrive with promises and left with excuses. Our security must be homegrown. Our alliances must be strategic, and our future must be built not on borrowed power, but on Pan-African strength, because the world is watching. This is no longer about who protects Africa. It's about who defines what Africa becomes. This is Frontline Africa. If you value truth unfiltered and power reframed from an African perspective, subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I am your host, Ezekiel Enejeta. See you in the next one.